You wonder how they're going to find their way, how to get them ready for the times you won't be there to help, how to help them to be strong enough, brave enough, mentally sharp, moral. They need confidence without arrogance.
That was awesome.
Skills without screens for the world beyond school and sports. Ready for emergencies, for challenges, for whatever the world throws their way. Prepared with what they have in their heads and hearts. What they can do with their own two hands. What they can do working with others and by putting others first. They need social without the media. A way to experience the real world in real safety. A place to be challenged without being overwhelmed. A safe place to explore the world and imagine what's possible for them in it. Where all kids are welcome and everyone has a path forward to new skills, advancement, leadership. Where their individual effort can create something invaluable. Something they will carry with them the rest of their lives.
Good evening, Greater Colorado Council, and thank you for attending tonight. My name is Livingston Keithley. I'm the Vice President of Membership for the Council, and I want to welcome you to our second session for a virtual membership summit for the Council to talk about some of the things we're focusing on in our recruiting season this spring as well as this fall. The video you just watched is a second video that we've received from National. They just produced that as part of the new name rollout that will be official on February 8th, our next birthday for Scouting, but they've told us to start using it now. As you can see, it's a great explanation of the value proposition of Scouting. That video is directed to the moms and the dads who are considering whether or not to join Scouting. And that's what we're going to be talking about tonight, is the value proposition. What does Scouting offer to your youth in order to join? One of the biggest things we're supposed to look at telling people is what joining a troop or joining a Cub Scout pack will provide to their son or their daughter. Families today have so much going on. I don't need to tell any of you on this call how much the families are overburdened with their activities. I'll tell you a short story that the main discussion point in my office today was not a trial going on in New York. It was talking about how one of my partner's sons, who is 11, is going to 3 different soccer tryouts over the next 5 days, and whether or not he'll be selected for the competitive soccer team, and what that's going to mean for their family. Those are the types of discussions that people are having when it comes to their youth, and we want to be part of that discussion. So what we're going to talk about tonight is we're going to hear from some presenters about how your districts and your units can effectively tell these parents what they're going to get out of Scouting. I wanted to start tonight by showing you something you've probably already seen before. I pull this graphic out at just about every seminar that I conduct, but I want to pull it out again so that you see it. What's important in looking at this is the idea that Scouting benefits kids and it benefits families. We talk about the Tufts study and what this Tufts study gives to our youth and the way that their social and emotional needs are improved based upon what we have. Let me put that on the screen for you so you see it. You look at this flyer and you talk about, does Scouting work? This was based on a study that was 5-6 years ago now, but it's still effective just as much today as it ever was. And whether or not Scouting helps our youth. And you remember and see, this study looked at over 2,000 scouts and non-scouts. in Cub Scouts from age 6 to age 12, and whether or not participating in scouting improved their mental and social awareness, their sense of obedience, their sense of cheerfulness, their sense of kindness. And you see down towards the lower right, the improvement of scouts over non-scouts. The scouts are listed on the green lines, the non-scouts are the orange. And for each of the scouts, by participating in scouting, their levels of cheerfulness from year 1 to year 3 went up, helpfulness went up, obedience went up, cheerfulness and helpfulness and kindness went up. At the same time, those who were not participating in scouting actually saw decreases in those values in the way that their kids saw themselves in the world. That's part of the value that we provide to the people participating in our program. Let me tell you our agenda for tonight. We're going to start off with a talk from Maggie Olson. Maggie has a master's in clinical mental health counseling, and she focuses primarily on nature-based therapy, specifically of children as well as adults. And she uses animals to assist in those therapy programs. She's going to talk some about the program that she does with animal-assisted therapy programs, but the focus of her talk is to discuss how being in the outdoors, participating outside in outdoor activities with other people and other groups is beneficial to the mental and social well-being of people. She's going to tie that into how that helps youth in scouting and how our program is uniquely designed to help give kids that resilience that they need throughout their lifetime. We'll then move on and talk about some of the educational successes that scouting provides to people who participate. We'll hear from Elizabeth Gonzalez, who's one of our Scout Reach executives, and goes into underprivileged schools to describe and start Scout units and then help those youth thrive as they go through the scouting program and do better than their peers within those underprivileged schools. Lastly, we'll talk to some of the families who have participated in scouting and talk about the benefits that they've received from being in scouting. We'll hear from the Kurtz family, who are members of Troop 538 and Troop 686, and they'll talk about their experience in scouting and how that's helped them generally in their livelihood, and how they can be a great example when we're talking about joining scouting to other people who haven't yet joined. After that, if we have some time, we'll open up for some questions and answers. I'll tell everyone right now, if you do have any questions, if you look below at the bottom, you have that button to ask questions in the Q&A section. By all means, please post your questions there, and the moderators, including me, will be trying to answer as we go through. And if we don't answer it in the chat, then we'll answer it live as we have a break between the two videos. So with that said, let me hand it over to Maggie Olson to talk a little bit about her mental health counseling program and how scouting ties in. Maggie, take it away.
Hi, thank you so much for being here. My name is Maggie Olson, and I am going to talk to you a little bit about the mental health benefits of nature-based recreation and community engagement for youths, particularly considering the benefits of scouting. So I have a master's in clinical mental health counseling with a focus in nature-based therapies, and I currently work as a clinician at Animal Assisted Therapy Programs of Colorado, which is located in Arvada. We offer animal-assisted psychotherapy, horticultural therapy, and lots of other nature-based modalities to our clients. We are a community mental health clinic, and we try to give services to as many people as we possibly can. So I spend a lot of time thinking about how mental health is supported through nature and through community involvement. That's a big part of my work, and it's a big reason why I get out of bed in the morning. So I hope to offer a little bit of knowledge around how Nature and community can help support mental health as you're considering whether or not scouting might be a path forward for you or for your children. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. So just bear with me for one moment. All right, so here we are, mental health benefits of nature-based recreation and community engagement for youths. So I think there are many, many aspects we could consider when we're talking about the benefits to our mental health in nature and in community, but I only have a little bit of time, so I am going to speak to the following three, which I think are three of the most important and three of my favorite reasons why nature is so important in our mental health. So the first piece we're going to touch on is neurocognitive development. So what's actually happening in our brains and our bodies when we spend time in nature, when we're engaged with community, with other people, what's actually happening under there. We're going to talk about what I call the initiatory needs of childhood and adolescence. And this is really thinking about what's happening developmentally for children as they're forming identities, as they're stepping into independence and greater autonomy, and they're developing skills. What's going on psychologically there, and what are the needs that need to be fulfilled? And then lastly, we're going to talk about group dynamics, what's happening in a group setting, and why groups, especially over a long period of time, can be so supportive of mental health. And then we'll touch on community engagement as well, because that piece is really at the heart of the scouting model, that kind of civic engagement and civic responsibility, giving back, volunteering, all of that also has a tremendous benefit in terms of mental health. So that's what we're going to be talking about here today. And we will start off with neurocognitive development. So nature-based play and nature experiences can be such a powerful tool for developing and improving mental health in youths. Childhood and adolescence is a really important time for neurocognitive development. And it's during these early years that our brains are kind of laying down the foundations of neural networks, neural pathways, kind of deciding what's important, what gets strengthened, how to take in all this information from the larger world. And nature provides a pretty surprising number of benefits for healthy neurocognitive development. It really impacts how the brain learns and how it functions. And these are a couple of key pieces in how it does that. So first is this concept of reduced stress and attention restoration. Nature seems to lower stress hormones in the body and helps our brain recharge from mental fatigue. We're all hearing a lot about cortisol these days, which is the body's stress hormone. And I'm sure that many of us can relate to that feeling of being on a busy freeway or in a crowded supermarket, and kind of just how taxing that can feel on our nervous system. There's really a sense of stress there. Time in nature is the antidote to that. It decreases levels of cortisol. We know that because clinical studies have been done. And it truly does lower levels of cortisol in the body and allows us to experience the world from a state that psychologists refer to as soft focus, which is just this really lovely state where we don't have to think too hard. We're taking information in, we're processing it, but it's not from a place of like vigilance or needing to control. It's just this kind of flow state. The next piece of this is brain activity boost. So studies using brain scans show that spending time outdoors increases activity in areas related to focus, attention, and information processing. Those are three really key areas of the brain. When we are developing, when we're young, having the ability to manage those areas and to move between those states of higher focus, to have more flexibility in our cognitive process, that is so important for development. And nature naturally enhances those capacities. It also promotes creative play and exploration. It's so important that we have unstructured time for play. And I think increasingly in this day and age, we don't have as many opportunities for that. Kids are often in school, they're in extracurriculars that are very structured, or increasingly they're turning to screens, which are structured in their own ways. They're kind of moving kids into these systems that doesn't let them really think about the world in this sort of free, easy, curious way. The same way that nature does. Nature just kind of opens the door to let kids make of the world what they will, and that's really, really important in development too. Of course, nature supports physical activity, and you know we know now more and more that there is such a link between our brains and our bodies, right? We're one big system, and mental health isn't just about what's happening in the brain, in our psyche, in our psychology. It's also what's happening in the entire system. So having an opportunity for more physical activity I mean, there's so much documented study around the impact of physical well-being on mental well-being. And then lastly is this piece of enhanced sensory input. So nature provides such a rich sensory experience. You've got sights and sounds and smells and texture. All of our sensory systems are online when we're in nature. And this diverse input really stimulates the brain and supports neural connections being made. I'm sure many of you have heard that smell is the strongest sense linked to memory, but really all of our senses are important. And when we're in that full body sensory engagement, that's when it's a lot easier for the brain to encode and store memories and strengthen neural pathways because it's happening on multiple levels at a time. So it's just a really important piece of this too, is having that kind of full body engagement. So moving on to the second kind of concept of this is what I call the initiatory needs of childhood and adolescence. It's kind of a universal truth that as we grow, we need to be tested. There's a quote that I love from Paul Petzl, who is the founder of the National Outdoor Leadership School, and he says, "Good judgment comes from adverse experiences." So we all have this psychological need to go through challenging situations in order to kind of step in and take our place in the community. These types of initiatory experiences have been happening across cultures since the beginning of time. A lot of my work and research involves what I call rites of passage experiences. And in the rites of passage model, an individual has to step outside of what is known, test or challenge themselves, and then return to the group to incorporate the knowledge that they've gained. And sadly, I think there's a real lack of this kind of initiatory experience in modern culture. And I think, you know, also sadly, that what we often see is youths finding their own ways to self-initiate. Initiation happens along a spectrum of safe and healthy to dangerous and unhealthy. And if youths aren't given an opportunity to sort of test themselves in healthy and supportive ways, they will fulfill those psychological needs through potentially dangerous choices and actions. So the psychological imperative of this need for initiation for testing is driven by a few key factors. The first one is identity formation. Adolescence is a crucial period for self-discovery and identity formation. By going through tests or initiations, adolescents can explore their strengths, their weaknesses, their values, and really their sense of self. Through facing challenges and overcoming them, they build confidence and a sense of accomplishment, which then solidifies this emerging identity that they have. There's also a piece around developing competence. So initiations often involve demonstrating skills and newfound knowledge. And this allows youths to prove their competence to themselves and to others, which fosters a sense of mastery. It shows that they're developing the abilities for adulthood. Group belonging and social acceptance. Many initiations are social experiences where youths can gain acceptance into a particular group or a peer community. And successfully passing a test or initiation actually signifies the ability of the individual to accept the group norms, to accept the values of the culture, which in turn fosters a sense of belonging and a sense of connection. And then lastly is autonomy and independence. So initiations can represent a real break, a real severance from childhood dependence on parents and caregivers. And by facing challenges independently, youths are demonstrating their growing autonomy, their ability to handle responsibility and change. And that's really a crucial step towards becoming a self-sufficient adult. I think at its heart, the scouting model is all about this type of rites of passage experience. Participants are stepping into a new identity as a scout. They're asked repeatedly to challenge themselves, to push their growing edges, and to seek mentorship. And at every stage of that process, there's an opportunity for incorporation to step into new levels of leadership and responsibility while sharing their skills and their competence with the group. Moving into group dynamics. So what is so special about being part of a group? What is it that makes the group environment so supportive towards mental health? I've listed the following concepts. These are all concepts taken from a framework that was created by a man named Irvin Yalom. He's kind of the godfather of what we would call modern group therapy. So he's really kind of developed the whole field of group therapy and the magic that happens in groups of people. And I want to say too, these are all very human qualities. It's not just in the therapeutic context. These qualities come into any group. Anytime we're together in a group, in a community, pieces of these are going to be present. But what's really special is that in safe and supportive groups where everybody's needs are being met and people are being held accountable for their choices and their actions, that these qualities become really, really effective tools for supporting mental health. And the first is universality. So children, adolescents, youth in general often grapple with similar issues. So peer pressure, identity formation, family dynamics. I would say the vast majority of youths are bringing some type of dysregulation or questioning with them when they step into a group of their peers. And sharing these experiences in a group setting can be really, really validating and can normalize their struggles, which in turn reduces feelings of isolation. The second is imparting information. So group leaders can provide education on topics that are relevant to adolescents, like healthy communication. They can provide coping mechanisms and offer social skills development. So there's this really important piece around receiving education, receiving mentorship. The third piece is altruism. And that's this concept that helping and supporting others in the group can foster a sense of purpose and a sense of belonging. So when we see that somebody else needs a hand, they need support, they need help, that allows us to step into an identity of being a caretaker, of being somebody that is reliable, that can offer support when it's needed. And that is a crucial piece of identity formation. Then we have development of socializing techniques. So the group environment provides a really safe space for adolescents to practice their social skills. They get to practice things like communication, assertiveness, and even conflict resolution, which is so important for youths to be able to step into that space where they can acknowledge what their feelings are, how they've impacted other people, and sort of navigate through those sometimes muddy waters of conflict and resolution is really, really important. We have imitative behavior. So adolescents are naturally influenced by their peers. And I don't think there's a parent on this earth who would disagree with that. But observing positive behaviors and positive coping mechanisms when those are modeled by other group members or group leaders can be a really powerful learning tool. Then we have interpersonal learning. And that's this idea that through the group interactions, adolescents get to learn about other perspectives. They develop empathy, they gain insights into their own communication styles and into others' communication styles, and they really get a better handle on social dynamics. And I think one piece of this that's kind of crucially important is that something like the scouting model allows this to happen over a long period of time, right? You might come into a group when you're younger and you might stay with them. You might stay with them for years. And so you're kind of in this developmental system together and you're watching each other grow, you're watching each other develop, and that kind of feeds off of itself. And the last piece of this is group cohesiveness. So when a strong sense of connection and trust exists within the group itself provides each of the members a safe place to express themselves, non-judgmentally, with support from their peers. And that's really like the beautiful heart of what it means to be in a group, is that hopefully at a certain point when trust has been established, then people can bring more of themselves forward. And that's really one of the beautiful things about group dynamics. So moving on to community engagement. So community engagement is really, I think, one of the most important pieces of the scouting experience. I know that the Scouts has a really long tradition of community service and civic engagement. And by participating in these activities, young people become a part of a legacy of giving back. They're sort of perpetuating a culture of community engagement, and that moves through generations, which is really beautiful. Community engagement offers, I think, a few powerful tools for strengthening mental health. And I see these as social connection and belonging. So we know that feelings of isolation are a major risk factor for mental health problems, and we're seeing this more and more in our youth populations. Community engagement combats loneliness by fostering social connections and a sense of belonging. So we're talking about regular interactions with others that provide support, reduces those feelings of isolation, and builds a network of people who care. It also reduces stress and anxiety, because when we feel connected to a supportive community, that acts as a buffer against the stresses of the world. When we know there are people who care, who have our backs, who've been there, who've shown up, who continue to show up, it really has an impact on how we perceive negative and stressful situations. It also lends itself to improve self-esteem and confidence, because when you're making a contribution to the community and you can see the positive impact of your efforts, you get this boost of self-confidence and self-esteem. You're learning new skills, you're problem solving, you're overcoming challenges, and crucially, you're receiving recognition for your work. That also creates that sense of mastery and accomplishment. It creates an enhanced sense of control. So community engagement allows us to feel control over our environment and over our well-being, because we're actually participating in the decision-making process or advocating for change, which is something that many of us don't experience very often in our day-to-day lives. We're often feeling at the mercy of systems beyond our control. And I think that's especially true for our youths, who often experience a lack of autonomy, that regaining some sense of control, regaining this sense of agency, of impact, can be hugely important. And then lastly is a feeling of shared experience and identity. Because we're working together towards a common goal, it creates a sense of shared experience and an identity within the community. That shared purpose then strengthens the social bonds and provides a sense of belonging to a larger group. So overall, community engagement offers a multifaceted approach to promoting mental well-being. It fosters social connection, reduces stress, increases purpose, and empowers individuals to feel more in control of their lives and of their communities. I know that was a lot of information. I hope some of it was helpful, gave you a little bit of food for thought in terms of the importance and the impact of these types of nature-based experiences, recreation, community engagement, and this choice to show up for others, to show up with others, to keep challenging ourselves, to learning new things. There's so much richness in that and so much benefit to our mental health. Of course, if you have any other questions or you'd like to connect, please feel free to shoot me an email. I'd love to hear from you. And all of my best. Thank you so much.
Excellent. Thank you, Maggie. I know a lot of that was very, very dense is the description I would give, but it's very important information. When we talk about what we're able to provide, you heard Maggie talk about over and over about how being outside, being in a community, engaging in outdoor activities helps the mental well-being as well as the social interactions of youth. That's exactly what Scouting is able to provide. Now, the reason we're focusing tonight on that mental and emotional and social well-being topic is because it's at the forefront of everyone's minds. That's what parents are thinking about today, right? When you think about how do I get my son or my daughter off of their screen? How do I get them outside? How do I get them to interact with people? When I grew up, we would ride bikes around the neighborhood and we would play games throughout the neighborhood. Kids today don't do that. And we'd love to see them at least engage and participate in some of those outdoor activities, albeit with a 21st century technological spin. But we want them to experience that joy that all of us had when we were youth. Social emotional wellness is not just a term that academics use in research about kids. And it's not just something that we're talking about in the abstract today. This is something that we are trying to explain and help parents as well as schools understand that Scouting can provide this to the youth. Here is why that's important. All of you on this call tonight hear me say every August that the critical feature of our membership drive is to get into the schools, to get in front of the classes and to get in front of those parents to be able to tell them what Scouting can do. When we're having those discussions with school administrators, though, they look at us at times the same way they would look at a soccer team or a taekwondo gym or some other nonprofit or other outside organization that just wants to use their facility. Scouting is so much more than that. When you take what Maggie just described to us and the benefits, and you go in and you talk with your principals and you talk with your teachers about what Scouting can provide, I want to tell you something that we haven't talked about before. And that is that schools in Colorado already are required to have components of social emotional wellness built into their school curriculum. Let me show you something that they have to have. Every single school in Colorado is mandated under these Colorado academic standards from the Colorado Department of Education to develop social emotional awareness components in their education curriculum. Put simply, Schools are supposed to be teaching this already, and they're not quite sure how they're going to do it. The standards that they are supposed to follow, if I scroll down, you'll see the standards that they're supposed to be able to teach. Movement competence and understanding, talking about motor skills and activity. Physical and personal wellness, why these are important and why children should learn lifelong lessons for their own physical and personal well-being. Social and emotional awareness, learning how to make responsible decisions, learning how to handle challenging situations constructively, learning how to be leaders. And then finally, teaching them about prevention and risk management, drug and alcohol awareness and how to deal with that, how to increase safe physical and social behavior in their environments, and how to develop decision-making and communication skills to better themselves and the people around them. Do any of you hear the same bells that I hear in my head when we're talking about those educational standards? And I think about the 12 points of the Scout Law, and I think about the Scout Oath and what we teach our kids every single meeting. That's what we're doing. In terms of what Scouting provides in schools, we're going to turn now and hear from Elizabeth Gonzalez, who's one of our Scout Reach executives for our council, to talk about the Scout Reach program that we have, how we go into schools and we help disadvantaged and economically challenged youth to be their best people. Elizabeth, take it away.
Hi, Elizabeth. Thank you so much for joining us today. Could you just quickly tell us what your role at the Greater Colorado Council is?
Yeah, thank you for having me. My name is Elizabeth Gonzalez. I am the district executive for our Scout Reach program. And for those who are not familiar with Scout Reach, it is our outreach program. At the heart of Scouting Colorado lies a commitment to inclusivity and diversity. Scout Reach is our initiative to ensure that every young person, regardless of their background or circumstance, has the opportunity to benefit from the life-enhancing experiences of Scouting. By partnering with local schools and organizations, Scout Reach provides affordable year-round Scouting programs where they are needed most. And we serve youth in grades kindergarten through 12th grade with a particular focus on those facing economic, social, or geographic barriers.
Thank you. And thank you so much for joining us to talk about how Scouting improves a youth school experience. So we know that Scouting teaches youth skills for day-to-day life, but also in the classroom. So how does Scouting directly support and enhance a Scout's experience in school?
Sure. So Colorado, of course, has academic standards that guide the students academically, but there is also 20 essential skills that they are required to teach youth to help them be successful in life after they graduate high school, whether that looks like them going into some sort of higher education or immediately into the workforce. And these skills are actually categorized into 4 content areas: personal skills, entrepreneurial skills, civic and interpersonal skills, and professional skills.
Okay, so how do those essential skills and Scouting values work together?
So they align in many different ways. For example, in Scouting, we do a lot of leadership development. So that looks like, a variety of activities and experiences, Scouts learning essential leadership skills such as collaboration, communication, critical thinking, and reasoning. Even outdoor adventures is a part of those essential skills. So of course, that's our thing. So we provide opportunities for outdoor exploration, environmental education, fostering a love for nature and a sense of stewardship for the environment. And then something that Scouting does that it also very much aligns with schools and these essential skills is something called social and emotional learning. Some of you may have heard of that before. You could have also have heard it called social and emotional academic learning, so SEL or SEAL. So Scouting fosters a supportive environment where Scouts can develop self-awareness, emotional intelligence, and healthy relationships with their peers and mentors. And then, of course, civic engagement. That's also something very big in Scouting. So we teach about civic responsibility and instill principles of good citizenship by engaging Scouts in community service projects and teaching them how to be positive members of their community. And then sometimes we don't really maybe think about this, but scouting really fosters creativity and innovation, which is also part of these essential skills. We encourage scouts to think creatively, explore new ideas, innovate solutions, and adapt to changing environments, which fosters resiliency and flexibility. And then scouting creates a sense of belonging. And this is something that the schools are really looking for lately. So we create a supportive and nurturing space where all scouts feel safe and encouraged to be themselves, discover new interests, and create new friendships. And so all of these things, and many, many other things, align with those essential skills. And we can bring that into the schools. We can bring it to the kids outside of school, and teach them these skills. And it helps the schools because they don't always have the time to teach this in the classroom. They have so many other things going on, as we're aware of. So if we can bring this to scouts and to the schools, we are providing a value to both the scouts and the schools that we serve.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to all of us about that.
Absolutely.
Excellent. Thank you, Elizabeth. So that's part of our Scout Reach program. We're also reaching out this summer to talk to our various school districts for our traditional units as well, to help talk about this social emotional learning concept and why letting Scout units get into the schools is going to only benefit those schools and help them teach these social emotional learning concepts that they're already required by the state to teach. We're trying to help them to fulfill those requirements. Next, let me turn it over to the Kurtz family. Have them talk about the family ties that come from being in scouting, how scouting has helped benefit their family and benefit their connections with other families. Again, keep in mind, the purpose of our membership summit seminars here is to help give you in the districts and you in the units talking points that you can use when you turn around and you do your membership recruiting, or you talk to those families that are on the fence because they're not sure if they're going to continue in scouting. We want to retain those families, and we want them to bring in new friends to enjoy scouting alongside with us. I'll turn it over.
Great. Awesome. Well, I'm joined today by the Kurtz family, and they're going to tell us about their scouting experience. So why don't you tell us about your family and your scouting experience, ranks, etc.
Sure. So our oldest, Michael, who isn't here today, is an Eagle Scout with how many palms?
2 silver palms.
2 silver palms. We have Matt here, who is a Life Scout. So close. And then we have Caroline, who is Tenderfoot. Second class. You just moved up in ranks. So that's kind of us. And then my husband, who's the Scoutmaster for my son's troop, and then the Scoutmaster for my daughter's troop. And then I have previous experience as a Scoutmaster for a girl troop.
Awesome. So how has scouting brought your family together?
You know, we were an outdoor-based family before, and I think this just provides us another layer of adventures, right? That enables the kids to also have these experiences to learn things that apply to merit badges. Hiking, biking, swimming, life-saving, all of these things that we kind of do already, fishing, fly fishing, fish and wildlife management, but now they get to a little bit more in-depth learning piece to it versus just the activity, the fun part, I guess, of the activity. Anybody else want to?
And we get to go on more fun adventures and make more fun memories.
Awesome. Is there anything that your family has got to do because you were in scouting?
I was able to go to Klondike this year because of scouting and camp in the snow. If I wasn't in scouts, I wouldn't have been able to do that.
Nice.
Fair. Well, the boys went backpacking. They did a troop trip kind of specific, and they did, what was it, Steamboat?
Yeah, up by north of Steamboat. We did 4 or 5 days and got 30 some odd miles in.
So, you know, scouting kind of prepared them for that, gave them the knowledge and a little bit of the basic experience to then kind of handle that trip with the adults and the youth. Oh, yep. Matt is going to the National Leadership Academy this summer. an opportunity that's been opened up through scouting. Scouting, people think of it as all the merit badges and the adventures, and that's true, but it also teaches life skills that will carry you through, right? Like leadership and, the EDGE method, which is a big thing, explain, demonstrate, guide, and enable. And even in my professional life, like there are things that I've taken, like that EDGE method. And when I'm teaching a new pharmacy tech to compound hazardous drugs, I'm using that EDGE method. And I didn't even realize it until I'm like, oh, I'm doing the EDGE, So I think there's a lot of things that we've applied in our everyday life that scouting has kind of opened that door, started us down that path.
Awesome. What other scouting skills have you guys used to have family fun, either in or out of scouting?
Ooh, family fun. Well,
We do a lot of fishing.
we do a lot of fishing.
It's a skill I had before scouting.
Well, even on this trip, when we were in Olympic
on.
National Park, right? We took our day pack with our 10 essentials, not knowing what we were going to run into. So we always have those things with us just in case, thankfully we had rain protection. It rains a lot, so that was good. Some trail snacks. So I think it just makes our family adventures more
like
safe
and
and
more hands-on because then we have the thing. So like if something does go wrong, we don't have to worry about, oh no, we don't have that in case something does go wrong. We already have the stuff that we need.
are we prepared?
Love that.
Prepared for the adventures. I mean, that's a big piece of it, is you have that background knowledge to understand the situation you're getting into, to research the weather before you go on a hike, all of these things, those scouting skills that are taught to you, I guess just enhance our family experiences.
I love that. Well, awesome. If you had to choose maybe one thing per person, what is your favorite thing that your family and or you as a scout got to experience because of scouting?
Why don't you go first, Carly? We'll go youngest to oldest.
So my favorite thing to do because of scouting is when they still had the scout show around, because I got to see like all these older scouts and what they did, so I could like look forward to doing that stuff because I was still a Cub Scout at the time. But then I like looked forward to doing that stuff in Boy Scouts.
Love it.
Matt?
Fishing.
Makes sense.
Oh, I guess I'm technically, I'm not the oldest in the group. I will say for me, it was in 2019 when I was able to provide the scouting program to females, to female youth. I mean, that was a huge door that was open for these girls. And to be one of the first trailblazing scout masters for those girl troops, like it was a learning curve, but it was a fantastic adventure. The sky didn't fall. Everybody came through okay. And I get it. There was a lot of unknowns and variables that we didn't know, but I will say that that's probably one of my proudest moments, is that I was able to open that door for about 16 girls, get them going. I think 6 made it to Eagle Scout in 19 months, which, I mean, they did all the work. I simply was hands on deck, like the bumpers keeping them moving. We did a lot of camping, and just watching that excitement of these sisters who had been on the sidelines for years to finally have that opportunity was pretty cool from an adult standpoint, to be that ticket to them to get those adventures and have those experiences too.
Awesome.
Mine's probably the backpacking trip we went on, and seeing those kids improve over those 4 or 5 days and do things they didn't think they could do, and things I didn't think I could do, and I would really like to do more of it. So that was a great trip.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate your time, taking time out of your awesome adventure out in Seattle. But I know that scouting has really just been beneficial for you guys as a family, and the quintessential scouting family, if you will. One last question, I guess, with your son being out at college and everything, do you feel like scouting really helps you stay connected?
I think scouting gave him a confidence that he was lacking. Our oldest is dyslexic, and so he always struggled in school. And so to always kind of be behind the curve with all of his peers was hard for him. Scouting leveled that playing field for him. It gave him the opportunity to have that tactical piece of hands-on learning. Yes, there was paperwork and there was requirements for merit badges, but all the adults he worked with him. And he felt like he was equal, the same as his peers, which was huge for somebody who struggled for 18 years. I mean, I can't understand his everyday struggles. I'm sure most can't, but for him, you could see that confidence. You could see him when he would, excel or succeed in something. You could just see his face light up because it wasn't just book learning. It wasn't just doing paperwork. There was a lot of tactical hands-on learning. And that was huge for him. I mean, that gave him a set of confidence that he can do it. Anything is possible.
I love that. Well, awesome.
I think the video ended a little bit early, but that's okay. Thank you to the Kurtz family for joining and kind of explaining what scouting benefits they've gotten as a family in participating in scouting. Again, this is to help give all of you talking points and a way of structuring your own pitch to talk to new families and talk to new scouts about why they might want to join. One thing I want to end on as we finish up tonight is something that we talk about over and over, but I want to make sure it makes it into our message this fall. And that is the idea that scouting is not just for people who have done scouting before. Here's what I mean by that. I'm an Eagle Scout. My kids participate in scouting, and my wife participated in scouting and joined scouting because they knew it was important to me, and I wanted to be part of that. I already knew what scouting could give to people. But we need to be talking to the people who don't have a scouting background anymore and explain to them why scouting is so beneficial to them. I had the privilege of going to the national meeting a couple of weeks ago, and there was a statistic that was thrown out that I found absolutely astonishing. We've always told ourselves that scouting is a very well-known brand, that people know who scouting is, that you see photos kind of like this one over my shoulder that looks like a Norman Rockwell. Well, in the 1960s and 70s, people did know scouting. But today, they did an independent survey of people who are not involved in scouting to talk about the awareness of the scouting brand. You would be surprised at how few people recognized the fleur-de-lis and recognized the logos of scouting. We need to reintroduce ourselves to so many families and so many people and talk to them about the benefits that scouting can give to them. I want to play one more video for you tonight. This is another video that is available to you on the Membership and Marketing Hub, where you can get photos and videos and other items to create your own presentations for your recruiting things. This is a video of an individual I met at the national meeting. His name is Tommy Lee. And he's talking in this video about why he joined scouting and what drew him and why he stayed in scouting, and then what benefits scouting has given to him and his family. This is exactly the message we want to get out to people. Let me play that for you now.
I'm Tommy Lee Hayes Brown. I'm Troop Committee Chair with Troop 63. You know, when you look at my story, see where I am and how involved I am now with Scouts, you would never believe that at one time, I'd never even liked the outdoors. I got into scouting through my son. My son saw another scout selling popcorn, so we went over to support that scout, and the scout was telling my son all about the fun things that you can do with scouting, the bow and arrows and the canoeing and the fishing. And at that time, I have 4 sons, so we all just did it together. I joined the organization and eventually got so involved and loved every aspect of it that it took me out of my comfort zone. And what I gained from it was really unexpected, is that, some lifelong friends. And because I was around so many great kids and so many great parents, I was like, I really want to be a part of this organization. What you put into scouting, you get out of scouting. And I got a treasure trove of stuff. The things that they've learned, some of the things they would have never gotten just for me because they just weren't, part of who I was at the time. If anyone is out there and they're hesitant to join scouting because it's just something you've never done before, my advice is do it. Because there's a place for everyone in scouting. No matter what it is, there's a place for you in scouting. Get your kid involved, you involved, you'll have a great time. I'm Tommy Lee Hayes Brown. Scout me in.
Thank you to everyone for joining us tonight and everyone who's watching this video. We appreciate your attendance. We appreciate everything you've done for Scouting. Again, if you have any questions, click that Q&A button at the bottom and feel free to ask any questions. We'll see if we can answer it or head back to you and get back in touch if we don't know the answer to that. In the meantime, if you have any questions, please reach out to me, reach out to our membership director, Emily Strawn. Our contact information is here on the screen now, as you can see. You've got my email and my phone number there. Feel free to reach out to me or reach out to Emily. Emily is at the council office, and her full-time job is to grow membership and to help increase Scouting here in the Greater Colorado Council and give every youth the opportunity to join. We'll go ahead and stop the recording, but thank you for attending tonight. Thanks for everything you do in Scouting, and we look forward to seeing you out on the trail soon.